Decían que esto parecía como un monstruo, una ola
It looked
gigantísima
like
que
a monster,
sonruía y escuchaban la voz de los
a wave
vecinos
which
que
ate
gritaban 2
everything.
veces y después no volvían a gritar porque el blanco se
The
iba
neighbours were screaming for help, and then
y
they were
casa
swallowed
y
up.
pared,
Houses, walls,
casa de 3,
complete
4
buildings were
pisos se
taken
lo
away by the
llevaban.
mud.
Desaparecían
Everything
totalmente. Eso fue
disappeared.
una hora de la mañana, 6,
It was
7,
7 or
8 de
8
la
o'clock in the
mañana.
morning.
No
We
podemos
never thought
imaginarnos
such a
cómo
thing could
pasó
happen.
esto, cosa que nunca pensamos que fuera a pasar. Nunca.
Venezuela is a country in mourning. In December, weeks of continual rain caused a massive avalanche of mud to sweep through towns and villages along the vulnerable coastline. It's now estimated to have claimed the lives of more than 30,000 people. Some say 50,000. The residents on this street in Carmen de Uria were taken by surprise. Buried beneath a thick layer of mud and rubble, some of their bodies will never be excavated. We didn't know what to do. It was an unchained monster. It was unpredictable, terrible. We survived it by a miracle. He lost his whole family, his father, his mother, his brothers, everyone. We can't bear so much pain. Our eyes are full of tears. I don't know what to do any further. We're waiting for God's help. Venezuela is ill prepared to deal with the aftermath. With up to 400,000 left homeless, the government has a massive task on its hands. The army is doing what it can, but many ordinary people have still not received any help. The people expect help but don't get it. The aid is only given to places where there are most people, and areas like the airport and government offices. But the authority is not present here. I'm not talking about the army or about the soldiers. I'm talking about the government, the politicians, even the president. On the holiday island of Aruba, a Dutch aircraft is loaded with supplies. It's some of the first overseas aid to arrive in Venezuela. From Aruba, it's 30 minutes by plane and one of the few open aid routes into the country. Sensitive to outside criticism, the Venezuelan government has restricted access to the disaster area. On the airport runway at Maquita, near the capital Caracas, international donor forces take responsibility for the newly arrived aid. From here, the supplies will be taken into the worst hit areas.
We hebben hoofdzakelijk water vervoerd, melk,
we mainly bought water and milk.
Als nodig is.
It's the first thing we generally deliver.
Dus dat is het eerste wat hierheen gaat.
Another plane delivered diapers and that kind of thing. First aid goods.
Pampers en dat soort eerste hulpgoederen hierheen gebracht.
The following day, the aid is taken into the remote regions most affected by the flooding. Diplomatic officials, including Dutch Robert Brinks, travel with the convoy to witness the devastation firsthand. As they approach the site from the air, the spectacle of sea containers strewn willy-nilly across the landscape is testament to the ferocity of this mudslide. Carmen de Uria was once a densely populated community. Today, nothing moves.
Ik denk dat de meeste mensen op hun daken hebben gestaan omdat de begane grond vol begon te stromen.
With their houses flooded with mud and stones.
Wat meegevoerd werd.
Most people were standing on the roofs.
Daken gestaan. Die hebben later op een gegeven moment misschien niet kunnen realiseren dat ze weer van die daken.
They didn't realize they should find a safer place.
Veiliger oord te vinden.
And in the end, they were dragged along and buried.
En bedolven.
Further along the coast lie the remains of Carabaleda. This was a tourist city known for its luxurious hotels and expensive apartments. But it too was swept away by the avalanche of mud. Now there are many reminders of the people that once lived here, but few survivors. The city lies in tatters, a silent and eerie monument to the thousands that died.
Cuando las avalanchas se vinieron, surgieron quebradas
The mud
de
avalanche
donde
came
no
in rivers.
existían quebradas,
In the places where there were no rivers, there were wide, swirling masses of water which dragged everything along. Many of us saw, with pain in our hearts, people being dragged along. We saw a house floating with people on the roof, and we couldn't do anything. Women were dragged along by the stream. It rained for 15 days here, starting on the 1st of December. We helped people who were threatened by the water. We saved people and furniture, but it was all in vain. In the end, everything was dragged away. Then, on the 15th and 16th of December, it began raining even more heavily. We didn't know what was happening.
Fue el día 15 y 16 donde la gente no hallaba para dónde coger.
Esa noche fue horrible.
The night was terrible. We did survive because we climbed up the mountain. Otherwise we'd be dead. Really terrible. The swirling rivers dragged everything along. The mud avalanche which came from the mountain drove my husband and me to take our children to a higher area. My feet are damaged, but we managed to save our food. The survivors are clinging on. This group has taken shelter in an unfinished block of apartments. Many residents have refused to be evacuated by the army. They say they'd rather stay near their homes.
La gente tiene ya aquí su vida hecha.
The people have lived here their whole lives. Many factories in which people have a job were swept away. I don't know where my boss lives. I don't know where I can collect my salary. I have, in fact, been thrown out. I lost everything. I was just able to save my own life. Most people are staying because their poor possessions are here. Most people lost everything. Refrigerators, gas range, washing machine, and so many lives. Venezuela's biggest problem now is its destroyed infrastructure. There isn't any electricity or water, at least the kind you can drink. Bulldozers are trying to create routes for the aid to travel along, but there are vast obstacles at every turn. For most, there's little choice but to cross the rivers on foot. Aid volunteers from the capital, Caracas, are using motorbikes to overcome the terrain and locate survivors. A combination of Venezuelan government resistance, millennium celebrations, and a general surplus of foreign crises has resulted in little aid being sent to the worst climactic crisis of the century. The army, however ill-equipped, appears content to continue without assistance, despite the scale of the disaster.
Esto yo creo que ha sido uno de los desastres más grandes.
This is one of the biggest disasters South America has ever known. There has never been such a disaster in Central and South America as this one in the Vargas region. The rain, the flood has turned our state into an emergency zone. It's a catastrophe the size of which we're only just realizing. Only now are we thinking about everything that has happened. The people who died. Thousands are dead or missing. We have to rebuild a state which has been totally destroyed.
Un estado que quedó un 50% destruido totalmente. Miles y miles de personas donde el río.
The expanded river dragged along thousands of people and 80% of residential towns. 8 or 9 cities with 50,000, 60,000 inhabitants were completely destroyed. The only thing that is left are stones, sand, and rubble, and the framework of larger buildings. The little houses were swept away. A much-needed tanker of clean drinking water arrives in the town of Macuto. It was terrible. It was a sea of mud and houses and people dragging along. This was beneath us in La Veguita. We live a little bit higher up. Now we don't have water or electricity. Coming in the last days of the last century of the millennium, this greatest of disasters raises questions about global warming. And in Venezuela, there are political recriminations. Why did the government ignore clear signs a catastrophe was about to happen? But as climactic turmoil increases worldwide, disasters like this won't have been experienced before. It's unlikely anyone will be ready for them.